Hi, I'm Simon K. Jones, and you're listening to the audio version of the Write More newsletter. So it's not unknown for this newsletter to go off on various tangents, but the central core is always the same. It's in the name, Write More. While I do occasionally stray into how to write good fiction, it's really not my focus. There are plenty of teachers and authors who are far better positioned than me to help you improve your writing in terms of its artistic quality. There's a missing piece of the puzzle there. You can go to university and study creative writing, take endless online courses, read all the classic books about writing, but none of that's going to make a single bit of difference if you're not actually doing the writing. So that's what this newsletter is all about. Write more. Before you can even think about being a good writer, you have to just become a writer. And the nifty truth is that by writing more, you will inevitably, over time, improve your skills. It's something I've poked at in the past when I foolishly thought it would be a good idea to calculate how many hours I've spent in my life writing. I'll put a link to that post down in the show notes. But we've always been told that less is more, right? Quality is more important than quantity. And there's some truth in that. If you've already built up a good writing habit, you get the luxury then of being particular about which words you're putting down. You can pick and choose and aim to make every sentence exquisite. At any point prior to that, though, less is simply less. Quality is always going to be important, of course, but if your quantity equals 0, then it's all academic. Obsessing over the perfect sentence can be satisfying as an exercise, but it's no good if it prevents you from finishing that sentence. So it really has to be in this order. 1, write. 2, write better. You can't do number 2 without doing number 1. And trying to leap ahead to number 2 can be a paralytic. There will always be better writers than you, and worse writers, of course. But worrying about not being as good as them isn't going to help. In fact, your future self is a better writer than you right now. But the only way to catch up to your future self is to keep writing. And this really is all about forming a habit. The way to form a habit is to keep doing something until it's easy, until you don't even think about it. That's easier said than done, of course. It's really easy to say and quite difficult to do, unless it's a bad habit, in which case it's irritatingly simple. But the trick for me was to try serial fiction and publishing my work online live to the page. It's an approach that requires a more relaxed approach to the work, while also building in a release schedule. Before I started publishing my work online, I'd write sporadically and would often abandon projects. Since I started serializing back in 2015, I've published a new piece of fiction every single week. That's a lot of words, and I'm a much better writer now than I was in 2015. But if I hadn't committed to writing and publishing my first serial, A Day of Faces, I'd never have got started on that improvement and ended up where I am today. Writing a new chapter every week felt like an impossible task at first, but by the end of that first book, it had just become part of my week. In 2021, I started writing this newsletter and added another piece of writing to my weekly output. Again, it seemed impossible, like I wouldn't be able to keep up, but then I built the habit, and now I don't even think about sending 2 newsletters out every week. Habits are powerful and potentially dangerous, obviously, in that they turn things which previously seemed near impossible into routine occurrences. And here's the other thing, practice leads to confidence. I used to have a real fear of sharing my work. At university, I had to read out a short story to a group once and receive feedback to my face. It was utterly terrifying. Almost everything I'd written outside of school assignments had stayed behind closed doors, like dirty little secrets, and allowing any of it out into the world seemed dangerous and risky. Writing a weekly serial forced me out of that thinking. Sharing my work is now a regular and obvious thing to do. Why wouldn't I share it? I'm more confident in what I write and also less bothered about what others think. That crippling self-consciousness has just gone away. That only happened, though, through writing a lot and publishing it to the world. If I was still tinkering quietly in my room by myself, with my work confined to notebooks and hard drives, I'd be in a much less happy place. It's not just confidence either. Like, consistent writing also helps to develop a personal style, which is something I only really developed after a significant amount of produced work. Developing style is a weird kind of alchemy. It's hard to pin down or force. It just happens over time. So, quantity isn't the end game, obviously. It's a way of getting started, of building a regular habit that you can then use to hone your writing into something exciting. Over time, you'll find your natural rhythm. But that's the thing about any craft. However else you approach it, one of the biggest contributing factors to your skill and satisfaction is just the amount of time you commit. The more you do it, the better you'll get. Reading books, studying, taking courses, all of those are multipliers that can accelerate your improvement. But none of them will work without just doing the thing itself, the writing in this case. One day, you'll just realise that the habit has been built. Maybe you're writing every day, or once a week, or a few times per month. It doesn't really matter, as long as you're getting the words down. Caveat number 1. Don't set impossible goals. So, when I suggest that writing more is a vital part of becoming a better writer, I don't mean that you have to write every day or hit an ambitious daily word count. Don't go in for any of that. I tend to favour the exact opposite, in fact, which could seem a little contradictory to what I've just been talking about. But big targets I don't tend to find are compatible with free creativity. If I have to hit 1,500 words every day, I just freeze up and either write less or feel massively stressed. I prefer to set a comfortable time goal instead, like 10 minutes per day. In practice, those easy 10 minutes, which I can definitely do 10 minutes a day no matter what, but those 10 minutes tend to turn into half an hour, or even more. But the writing remains fun and loose. There's no associated word count with this sort of 10-minute goal either. If I write nothing at all, that's fine, as long as I've spent 10 minutes thinking about the work. I mean, chances are I will write something, but on those days where it's just not coming, that's fine. I'll think about the plot, I'll think about the characters, probably work through some sort of problem so that the next time I do write, it's going to be even better. And over time, having relaxed targets will, in my experience, result in higher achievement anyway, at least in the specific case of creative writing. The aim here is to write consistently, not to burn out. And caveat number 2, beware the churning slop. At some point, quantity will tip over into being a negative force. If you're releasing a new ebook on Amazon every month, there's a very good chance the grind is reducing the quality of your novels or the quality of your mental health. The key to remember is that quantity is not the end goal. By prioritizing quantity above all else, you stop being a writer and end up being a content producer. You're just producing more stuff for the sake of it. Remember, you're here to write short stories, or novels, or novellas, or screenplays, or songs, or whatever it is you are particularly passionate about. You're not just making generic content. Don't let the streaming services and the insatiable appetite of platforms like YouTube convince you otherwise. The quantity that I'm talking about is a means to an end, and that end is still quality. Anyway, I just wrote and then read out an unnecessary number of words, all about writing more, which I suppose is kind of appropriate. Thanks for listening. You can find more, leave comments, let me know your general thoughts on this and how you built up a writing habit, or maybe if you're still struggling to do so. Head over there, leave a comment, and let's keep the discussion going. Okay, thanks for listening. There's a new newsletter every week. I'll see you there. Bye-bye.